Welcome to this next edition of Smart Levers. Hi Ramanan. Today we want to talk about something from the world of biology and Crick and Watson, right? We're going to talk about Innovators DNA. So what is this all about? How does the nucleic acid change?
Yeah, so all humans are to some extent creative and innovative, but that's not the DNA molecule that we're talking about. It's a more conceptual idea. And the innovator's DNA, it comes from a book of the same title written by three authors. One of them, who is Clayton Christensen, very famous for his work on innovation. And so the book is like five traits that innovators have in common. So often, as innovators, when we are asked to describe them, words like they're creative, they're experimental, come to mind. But when these authors dug and did some research around what makes for good innovators, they realize there is more to it. So the model actually starts with this distinction between what they call delivery skills and discovery skills. Delivery skills are about execution, collaboration, those kinds of traits. But discovery is a whole different beast. And you may have people who are very sort of inefficient at execution, but they're terrific at coming up with new ideas. So therefore, the innovator's DNA has five traits. The five traits are asking the right questions, observing, uh, experimenting, which is the most well-known of these traits, and two interesting newer concepts. One is called associating, which is essentially connecting the dots from what you observe, making those conceptual leaps. And finally, there is a place for networking as well. And the idea of networking here is not to just swap business cards, but to really get feedback on your ideas from your network of people. So you choose a group of people who can contribute to your understanding of an idea. So in a nutshell, the innovator's DNA, five traits that marks out innovators, and they are very different from your typical delivery skills that come into play once an organization has settled in and has figured out a business model and is now just executing it.
Right. So I think we're going to have future episodes where we will dig deeper into each of these individual traits. But I want to cover this at a slightly higher level today. So are we saying, or are the authors saying, that people either have these discovery skills or delivery skills or not? Is it like a fixed versus growth mindset kind of thing? Is it a fixed mindset issue that you either have the traits or not? Can they be
In some
coached?
sense, it's like the DNA argument. There are some things that by personality people have them. So some people tend to be better at asking questions or making leaps of association. But these are traits, and some of them can be learned. Or you put yourself in an environment where you team up with people who can bring that together. So if you think of the DNA of a team of innovators, one way to apply this is to say, can I get people who are good at making observations, who can go and talk to people, observe things in the field? And can I also have people who are really good at prototyping, experimenting, which a lot of engineering talent tends to have? So I think the right way to look at it is both nature and nurture. And you can put together a team of people, and some people will just take to it very naturally, and some people will have to be coached about it.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, how have we used the idea? How have we put this to use in our work?
Right. So, one of the projects that we've done and areas that we've worked in is to help leaders foster a culture of innovation within their organizations. And so, this can be a very ambiguous, loosely defined sort of a problem. What does it really mean? And how can you really ensure that you're not focusing only on things like experiment? So, typically, someone will start a hackathon. So, that's really the experimentation muscle. But what about the other aspects, right? And that's where a model like the innovator's DNA can really come in handy. There are some people who can contribute to innovation within an organization, even though they may not be very handy with experimentation. These could be the people who can do the idea networking, who can go and observe things in the field, get feedback for you. And so the way we used it was to really broaden the discussion about creating innovation culture. And for instance, identifying people, having content that helps them understand frameworks related to each one of them. So if you're using a lean sort of startup model for experimentation, for questioning, like asking great questions, you can use a technique like question storming. So the way we've used it is really to segment different kinds of contributions to innovation, set up repositories of content that can help different kinds of people understand that you need all these in your team to really have a successful shot at creating a culture of innovation in your team.
All right. And why should uplevelers, members of our audience who are looking to uplevel themselves or leaders who are looking at upleveling their teams, why should this idea or notion of innovators DNA be part of their toolkit of smart levers?
So I think all our uplevelers will either have an itch to change something about the world or introduce something new. So they are innovators at as one part of their identity is bringing new kinds of change and new kinds of value. And so they will either be doing this in a personal capacity or they will be encouraging people in their teams to participate. And maybe they will encounter innovation programs that they can help improve. So for these different use cases, I think if they start with something like a model like the Innovators DNA, it will help them make a very meaningful contribution, because we know that innovation is by its very nature a very failure oriented kind of a process, and it can be a very dispiriting sort of a process. And so if you have something like this, it really helps you improve your chances of success whenever it comes to innovation. I think the other thing that uplevelers will do is want to know how they can contribute to a process. And for them, not all of them may be good at hacking their way, not all of them may be good at networking. But I'm sure out of these five things, using some of the smart levers you've spoken about earlier in this series, they will be able to contribute to better questions, better associations, and better observation. So there is a role for all uplevels to play in changing the world, and Innovators DNA can help you find your place in that whole situation.
Right. I think the biggest takeaway for me about Innovators DNA is the fact that think of this as the entire spread of traits that you are looking at. Don't leave a blind spot, because now that you know these are the five traits that you should have, you either look for people who already have all these things, or you go and plug these holes. Make sure it doesn't get left out, because these are the traits that are required to make an innovation come to life and go from what we call ideas to invoices, right? So that is the biggest takeaway for me. Is that right?
That's right. You can definitely look at it that way.
Okay. On that note, Ramanan, thanks for talking about the innovators DNA and making sure that we didn't go too deep into genetics and nucleic acids.